That is what you deserve. Those 5 words didn't just hit me, they welded themselves to my skin harder than the scalding gumbo Vivienne Vance hurled into my face. Even now, the echo of her voice clings to me like heat trapped under burned flesh. My name is Marceline Holt. I am 59 years old, and this is the story I locked away until silence itself became a cage. It happened at my son Aiden's wedding reception, the night I learned that love alone cannot save a child who has already sold his soul. Vivienne, his new mother-in-law, a woman who strutted through life as if the ground itself owed her rent, lifted that steaming bowl with the elegance of a woman who memorized cruelty. She didn't hesitate, she threw it directly into my face. The burn slapped me first, raw, violent, punishing. The spices seared my eyes, the broth soaked through my ivory silk blouse like shame made liquid. But the pain that gutted me wasn't physical, it was the smile. Vivienne tilted her chin the way queens tilt crowns and said again, louder this time, "That is what you deserve." The ballroom froze. Glasses stopped clinking. People stared at their plates as if they feared being next. No one spoke. No one intervened. No one cared except one, my son, Aiden Holt, my only child, my entire life's work. My every sacrifice sewn into a single human being. He sat at the head table, arms folded like a judge settling a sentence, and said, "She's right, Mom." Those words sliced deeper than boiling soup ever could. But I refused to crumble. I refused to scream. I refused to beg for a scrap of the boy I raised alone after his father disappeared like smoke. Instead, I did something no one expected. I picked up my napkin, dabbed my burning face with what dignity hadn't been stolen from me, stood up, and walked away. Inside, my bones trembled. Outside, my back stayed straight because humiliation destroys you faster when you bow to it. When I reached the double doors, I didn't leave immediately. No, I pulled out my phone, dialed a number I had saved weeks before, a number I prayed I would never use. When the call connected, I whispered 3 words. "It is time." Then I stepped out of the ballroom. No one followed. No one asked if I was alive. No one cared. I got into my car and drove through Buckhead's quiet streets toward my small apartment in the West End. The city lights blurred, but not from the burn, from the betrayal. One question clawed at my mind. How did my life end up here? Because once upon a time, Aiden hugged me every night. Once upon a time, he looked at me with pure devotion. Once upon a time, he promised, "I'll always protect you, Mom." But that night, I learned the truth. Sometimes the people you love the fiercest are the ones who cut the deepest. And sometimes silence becomes the only blade you have left. What happened after that call? What unfolded next turned their entire world to ash. But to understand the explosion, you must first understand the spark. The first moment Vivienne Vance decided I wasn't worthy of being in my own son's life. Because before Vivienne threw soup in my face, she threw the first warning straight at my heart, and I ignored it. 3 years before Vivienne Vance baptized me in boiling humiliation, life was quiet. Not perfect, but it belonged to me. Back then, I lived in a modest but sunlit apartment in Atlanta's West End. My balcony overflowed with red geraniums and trailing bougainvillea I watered every morning at 7 a.m. My routine was peaceful: strong black coffee, 1 honey biscuit from Mr. King's bakery, and then I'd walk downstairs to open Holt Tailoring, my little shop stitched from sweat and survival. I wasn't rich. I wasn't glamorous. But I was steady, and steady feeds you better than luxury ever will. I raised Aiden alone after his father bolted when our son was barely 5. That man left me with nothing but unpaid bills and a child who cried himself to sleep asking why Daddy stopped loving him. I learned then that some parents love with conditions, others love with backbone. So I built a backbone. I sewed wedding gowns for women who would never invite me to their weddings. I hemmed dresses for church ladies who whispered gossip while I pricked my fingers on their sequins. I embroidered blouses until my knuckles ached. My grandmother's old Singer sewing machine rattled like a tired heart, but it kept going, and so did I. Aiden grew up watching that machine, watching me. Every morning before school, he'd kiss my cheek and say, "One day, Mom, I'll work so hard you'll never have to." I believed him because he was kind, responsible, gentle. He studied without being pushed, volunteered on weekends, helped me sweep the shop every Sunday after church. I used to tell him, people always reveal what they need even when they don't speak it aloud. He'd nod seriously, absorbing everything like a sponge. When Aiden got into Mercer University on scholarship, I nearly fainted. I worked double shifts so he never had to worry about money for books, food, or housing. I refused loans. I refused help. I refused pity. Every dollar I saved was punched with a prayer: let my son live easier than I did. And he did. He graduated top of his class. He got hired by one of Atlanta's rising luxury real estate firms. He wore suits that I tailored myself. Every Sunday he brought me flowers and said, "Everything I am is because of you." If I had known how quickly gratitude can turn into entitlement, I would have hugged him tighter. It wasn't until he met Alara Vance that the shift began, slow at first, like a quiet leak in a ceiling you don't notice until the whole place caves in. The first time he mentioned her, I caught something in his voice, a new urgency, a new hunger. "She's different, Mom, special?" Alara was beautiful, Alara was wealthy, Alara was naive, and Alara came with a mother shaped from pure acid, Vivienne Vance. Vivienne was the kind of woman who dressed like every event was a coronation. The kind who never lifted a finger but lifted her eyebrows enough for 10 people. She lived in Buckhead, hosted charity events for diseases she couldn't pronounce, and treated working-class people like decorative background props. When Aiden told me I would finally meet Alara, I ironed my best navy blue dress, combed my curls into submission, and put on my mother's pearl earrings, the last gift I ever received from a woman who taught me dignity even in hunger. We met at a sleek Buckhead restaurant where the water had more attitude than the waiters. Alara arrived in a flawless white dress and a smile too polite to be sincere. She called me Miss Marceline, placing an unnecessary wall between us. But the real omen came when she said, "My mother can't wait to meet you." The way she said mother had weight. The way she said meet you had warning. Aiden squeezed my hand under the table. I squeezed back. But deep inside, a cold whisper curled around my spine. "Vivienne is coming for you." And I didn't even know yet how right that voice was. Because the night I first stepped into Vivienne Vance's house, she didn't just judge me, she declared silent war. The night Vivienne Vance declared war. Vivienne's Buckhead mansion looked less like a home and more like a shrine to insecurity, enormous, overdecorated, and full of things meant to impress people she secretly despised. The moment Aiden and I stepped onto her marble porch, I felt the temperature drop. Vivienne opened the door with that waxy smile she wore like armor. "Marceline," she said, giving me 2 air kisses so far from my cheek it felt like she was blessing the air instead of greeting me. "Do come in." The message was clear: you may enter my house but not my world. The interior was a museum of excess. Crystal chandeliers that looked stolen from Versailles, Persian rugs thick enough to bury sins in. Expensive art that probably meant nothing to her except price tags. Alara floated down the stairs in a blush pink dress that likely cost more than 3 months of my rent. She greeted me with the same practiced smile as before. "Miss Marceline, you look lovely." There it was again, Miss Marceline, a title she didn't use for anyone else, a subtle way to say other. Separate, below, a young maid with tired eyes served dinner. Vivienne didn't look at her once, she talked to her the way people talk to automated machines. "More water. Wipe that. Hurry." Every order struck me like a warning. This is how Vivienne treats people she believes are beneath her. Which means this is how she plans to treat me. During dinner, she talked nonstop about her friends at the country club, their vacation home renovations, her poor Charles who worked so hard, yet spent the entire meal half asleep in an armchair with a whiskey glass dangling from his hand. Alara leaned against Aiden in a way that screamed ownership. "We were thinking about getting a bigger car," she chirped. "Aiden's sedan is just modest." I felt my jaw tighten. He bought that car with his own money, with pride, with discipline. But wealth ruins people faster than poverty ever did. Vivienne chimed in, swirling her wine. "Of course he needs an upgrade. You can't marry into our family driving something so basic." Basic. A word meant to stab without leaving blood. I smiled politely. The only weapon I had was dignity. They spoke about the wedding next, a cathedral ceremony, a St. Regis reception, 1,000 flowers, a $30,000 cake. I wasn't asked my opinion once. Finally, Vivienne looked at me with the sweet cruelty of a woman who loves the sound of her own poison. "Marceline, dear, I'm sure you understand. It's important Aiden starts his new life without burdens." Burdens, she meant me. I felt the blow but kept my voice calm. "I have never been a burden to my son." Vivienne smiled like I'd proven her point. Of course not, darling, but young men need space, independence. You must learn to step back gracefully. Alara arrived from the restroom, glowing from the compliments Vivienne had showered on her moments before. Charles snored through it all. Dinner ended with Vivienne handing me a small box. A little something to remember us by. Inside was a porcelain teacup trimmed with gold. Delicate, elegant, sterile, not a gift, a message. You don't belong here, sip quietly and stay in your lane. In the car home, Aiden asked, "Did you like Vivienne, Mom?" I stared at him, at the man he was becoming, the man slipping through my fingers. "She's strong," I said carefully. He smiled. "That's what I love about her, she knows what she wants." Yes, she wanted control, she wanted Alara's inheritance protected, and she wanted me erased. That night I put Vivienne's porcelain teacup on my table. I couldn't drink from it. I picked up my old stoneware mug instead, the one with a chip on the rim and a lifetime in its handle. One sip in, I realized Vivienne wasn't simply judging me, she was preparing to replace me. And Aiden was letting her, because the next blow wasn't thrown by Vivienne, it was thrown by Aiden, and it shattered what was left of us. The moment Aiden fractured our bond beyond repair. The weeks after that dinner felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. Painful, but you pretend you're fine so you won't bleed in front of people who would enjoy watching. Aiden began drifting, slowly at first, then so fast it felt like someone had cut the anchor between us. Before Vivienne entered his life, he came home every Sunday. He brought pastries. He sat in my little shop and told me about clients, projects, dreams. But after that night, Sunday visits became optional, then rare, then non-existent. "Sorry, Mom, Vivienne invited us to brunch." "Sorry, Mom, Alara and I have a planning meeting." "Sorry, Mom, it's been a crazy week." "Sorry." Sorry. Each sorry was another stitch unraveling the fabric of the boy I raised. Then one day, Alara shocked me. She invited me to join them for her wedding dress fitting. "Miss Marceline," she said sweetly over the phone, "you're so experienced with fabrics, I'd love your opinion." For the first time in months, something warm flickered in me. Maybe I misunderstood her. Maybe she wanted to include me. I arrived at the boutique early, wearing a simple navy dress I made myself, hoping not to embarrass my son. Alara arrived 40 minutes late, with Vivienne and 3 friends trailing behind her like sparkly shadows. "Miss Marceline," she chimed, kissing my cheek. "So glad you made it." She said it like she didn't expect I would. Dress after dress, Alara stepped out of the fitting room, each one more dramatic than the last. Lace, silk, sequins, each costing more than half my yearly rent. Vivienne critiqued with expert arrogance. Her friends took pictures like paparazzi. And me, I sat there invisible. Until Alara emerged in a strapless French lace gown, clearly uncomfortable but forcing a smile. She twirled. "What do you think, Miss Marceline?" Everyone turned toward me, waiting, judging. I took a breath. "It's lovely, but the strapless cut doesn't flatter you as well. Thin straps or lace sleeves would suit your shoulders better." Silence fell like a dropped chandelier. Her friends exchanged glances. Vivienne froze mid-sip of her champagne. Alara let out a brittle laugh. "Oh, well, strapless is what's in style. Maybe you're not up to date on trends?" The giggles that followed felt like tiny knives. Vivienne stood and placed a hand on Alara's shoulder. "My dear, you look radiant. We're taking this one." Decision made, without me. When we stepped outside, Aiden was waiting on the sidewalk. Alara ran to him, showing pictures of the dress. He kissed her forehead. "You're going to be stunning." He didn't look at me, not until I stepped closer. "How was it, Mom? Did you like the dress?" "It's beautiful," I lied, because mothers lie sometimes to protect their children from the truth. "Thank you for coming," he said, but then Vivienne appeared, grabbing his arm. "Aiden, darling, we need you for lunch, wedding logistics." Alara smiled at me. "You're coming too, right?" Before I could answer, Vivienne cut in, "Oh no. I'm sure Marceline is exhausted. Besides, we don't want to bore her with details." Aiden didn't protest. He didn't even look my way. He kissed my cheek and walked away with them. I stood on the sidewalk until their luxury SUV disappeared. For the first time in years, I cried in public. Small tears, quick ones, the kind you wipe before strangers can pity you. That night, back in my apartment, my stoneware mug trembled in my hands as a harsh truth sank in. Aiden wasn't drifting. He was choosing, and he wasn't choosing me. I told myself it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Because the next betrayal wouldn't come from Vivienne. It would come straight from my son's mouth, and it would break something in me I would never get back. Because when Aiden opened his mouth at that dinner, he didn't just betray me, he sold the last piece of his soul. The night my son proved he no longer belonged to me. 2 weeks after the dress-fitting debacle, Aiden invited me to dinner, just the two of us, he said. His voice held that old warmth I missed so badly. I clung to it like a starving person clings to crumbs. I arrived 30 minutes early wearing a burgundy dress I sewed myself. I wanted him to be proud. I wanted to believe my son was still somewhere inside the man Vivienne was molding. But when he walked in, he wasn't alone. Alara was on his arm, smiling like she owned the restaurant. "Sorry, Mom," Aiden said casually, sliding into his seat. "Alara wanted to join us, you don't mind, do you?" Of course I minded, but I swallowed it. "No, baby. It's fine." It wasn't. I sat there, eating quietly while Alara talked nonstop about wedding plans, their honeymoon in Bora Bora, and the condo her father planned to give them, a Buckhead condo with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and more luxury than Aiden had ever known. "My dad says it's important to start strong," Alara added proudly. I forced a smile. Inside, something was cracking. Then the waiter set the check on the table. Aiden reached for his wallet, then hesitated, then looked at me. "Mom," he said softly, "can you lend me $2,000 just for the month?" Wedding expenses hit harder than I expected. My heart dropped into my stomach. $2,000, I didn't have $2,000. I barely had $200 after paying rent and shop bills. But I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope of emergency cash I saved for electricity bills or medical needs. Because I was his mother. "Of course, baby," I said, pushing the money toward him. He didn't hug me, he didn't thank me, he didn't even look ashamed. He just pocketed the money like it was owed to him. Driving home, the truth foamed inside me. Aiden didn't see me as his mother anymore. He saw me as a backup plan, a wallet, a burden, but I tried to swallow it. I tried to stay silent, until silence itself broke. It happened on a slow Tuesday at my shop. A delivery boy handed me a manila envelope, no return address. I opened it. Photographs spilled out like a confession. Aiden, my son, in restaurants, in hotel entrances, in an apartment building with Vivienne, not hugged like a mother-in-law, not guided like a mentor. No, her hand was on his chest, his hand on her waist. Their faces close, too close, and the last picture stole the air from my lungs. Aiden on a balcony at night. Vivienne leaning into him, his arms wrapped around her, her smile soft, intimate, possessive. My legs gave out. I fell to the floor. I crawled to the bathroom and vomited until nothing was left. Because I finally understood, Vivienne didn't hate me because I was poor. She hated me because I was her competition. My son wasn't marrying into their family. He was already tangled in it in the most twisted way possible. Aiden wasn't simply drifting from me. Vivienne was pulling him, feeding him, shaping him, claiming him, and Aiden, he let her. When I could finally breathe, I picked up the photos. My hands didn't shake anymore. Shock had burned itself into something harder, something cold, something sharp, something that said, the boy I raised is gone. And the man he became needs to be exposed. I walked to my sewing machine, stared at the needle threaded with black, and realized exactly what I had to do. I took out my phone. Dialed a number a client once whispered to me when her own life fell apart. "A private investigator, Dorian Price speaking." "This is Marceline Holt," I said. "I need your services." "What kind of services?" "I need the truth," I replied, "no matter how ugly." Because what Dorian Price uncovered didn't just reveal betrayal, it revealed a crime, a plan, and the darkest truth of all. Vivienne wasn't done with my son yet. The night everything Vivienne built turned to ash. The moment I left Dorian's office, I knew I couldn't face this alone. I needed someone powerful, someone immune to Vivienne's charm, someone she couldn't manipulate or seduce. There was only one man alive who fit that description: Augustin Estrada, Alara's grandfather. The man who built the Estrada fortune with his bare hands and a ruthless sense of justice. Months earlier, he'd looked me in the eye and said, "If you ever need anything, Marceline, call me." That night, with the evidence burning a hole in my purse, I called him. He answered on the first ring. "Marceline, Augustin, I need your help. It's life or death." He didn't ask questions. "Come to my house. Now." Augustin lived in a weathered bungalow in Inman Park, small, old, honest. A direct insult to the flashy world Vivienne pretended she belonged to. I handed him the folder. He read everything in silence, the photos, the bank transfers, the hotel